And all of a sudden, this little kitten, like this little pound and a half kitten, leaps off the table and attacks me, attacks my technician. Like we're both getting bitten all over the place.
Oh my gosh.
And my technician goes, I think we should test it for rabies.
Huh.
I went, yeah, you're probably right.
The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their sole purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Wake Up Your Soul. Today's guest is Judy Morgan, and I'm excited to have her here. She is a 9 times best-selling author, 9 times, which is amazing. So if you're writing a book, it sounds like she might have something she can tell you about that. And she said she's working on the 10th, which I'm sure will be another best-selling author. She clearly knows what she's doing. She is also known as a holistic veterinarian of the decade. So let's welcome Dr. Judy. Hi, Judy. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you, and thank you for the invitation to be here.
Yeah, I mean, health is very important to me, and I'm sure for people listening, they follow my journey's been a roller coaster, and I'm currently going through a whole 'nother roller coaster of waiting on biopsies from my colon, which are not looking real good, and I'm disappointed in myself. I know better. I know how to do better, but I just, it's always a whirlwind figuring all that out. But when it comes
Mhm.
to our pets, it's funny, but I feel like I know people where they prioritize their health to the nth degree, and then their pets, it's like, "Huh, I'll just buy them a bag of food from Walmart," and it just doesn't make sense, you know?
We find that a lot, but part of it is because people don't know
Right.
that there's a difference. And so that is my whole goal with my company. When I retired from clinical practice, I have put all my efforts into educating pet parents. And so that's why I do podcasts. I have my own podcast. That's why I write the books. And that's what my whole company is about is educating pet parents to empower them to take control
Mhm.
and have their pets live a really vital, long, healthy life. So that's the
Yeah.
goal.
Well, and I get it, like, if you know better, you do better, but until you do know and, a lot of these brands that are sold at just your typical stores, I mean, they have ads galore telling you they're the best and they're gonna make your dog live the longest and all that, which I actually do wanna talk about because I know you know Angela, and I had her on,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
were talking about her CBD products and talking about lifespan, and I wanna talk about that a little bit too. We don't have to start there, but I do wanna talk about lifespan of dogs because it seems as I'm learning, which I really didn't ever think about too much, but it's like maybe they aren't living as long as they are actually meant to.
They are not. So we know back in the 1970s, the average lifespan for a medium-sized dog was 17 years. Now it's
Okay.
10.
Yeah.
So and we have much better diagnostic capabilities, we have more medications, we have more specialists, and yet they are dying sooner.
Mhm.
And the statistics for cancer is 1.64 out of every 2. So that's almost 3/4 of our
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah.
No, it's over 3/4 of our dogs are getting a cancer diagnosis, and cats aren't quite as high with the cancer thing, but it's still pretty high, and so really my goal is to get people to have their dogs, even if it's a large breed, we want them to live to 20.
Mhm.
That should be our goal, and it really saddens me when I see on social media people say, "Oh, I just lost my dog. He was 11. He had a good long life." And I'm like, he had half a life," and I don't wanna make people feel bad when they say that, so of course I don't say anything, but it's like, "Oh," like, we need to set our sights differently. Our cats should be living to 30, and the longest lived dogs have lived to 30 and 31, and what is different? And the sad thing is those dogs who live that long, they're eating all human food and they're not getting vaccinated and they have a lot of outdoor time and
Yeah,
they spend a lot of time exercising and doing all the things that dogs are meant to do, and they're not getting poisoned with all the
yeah,
things
yeah.
that we do in the name of trying to keep them healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, mhm. Okay, I wanna get into all that because I have an opinion on that, but I actually wanna start I wanna start with how did you get here? How d I mean, I am sure, like, vet med school Judy probably wasn't the same as she
No.
is now. So, how did we
No.
get here?
So I went to veterinary school in the early 80s at University of Illinois, so Midwest early 80s. There was no such thing as doing acupuncture, chiropractic, whole foods, like, that didn't exist. And so I spent my first 10 years in practice doing all of those things. I was miserable. I hated it. I didn't realize how much I hated it until I was asked to speak to an undergraduate college pre-vet group, and I gave my hour presentation with slides of my day in the practice, day in the life of. And at the end, the instructor for the course said, "If you hate your job so much, why are you doing this?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, is that how I came across?" Like, you're
Oh
right. I
my
do hate this. And so I didn't realize how much I hated it. And part of it was I'm not made up to work for somebody else. I have the personality of an entrepreneur and I am meant to work for myself and be the
Mhm.
boss. So once I, kind of moved into that, I became a partner in a clinic and then bought out my partner and became my own boss, which much better,
Yeah.
much better because I get to make the decisions. But, I used to call it fate or luck or whatever, but really it was God said to me, "This is what you are meant to do."
Mhm.
And so I took this course that I didn't know what it was. It was called veterinary orthopedic manipulation. Well, I'm gonna, help my patients with something.
Why did you take this course? Was it, like, continuing
Be-
education and
Yeah, it was continuing education. It was expensive, but it was a postcard literally that came in the mail. And it said, "This will help your patients heal faster after surgery. It'll, prevent re-injuring themselves, all these different things." So I was like, "Oh, that sounds great." And after I got there, I was like, "This guy's talking about chiropractic. I don't even know if I believe in this stuff." But I stayed because it was expensive. And then when I went back to work the next week, I started using it and miracles were occurring. Animals that couldn't walk were jumping up and running out the door. And yeah, I just kind of went, oh, oh. Well, if this works so well, what else is out there? And I started building a name for myself because people started talking about these miracles. And so then I was like, well, what else is out there? And so I looked at pretty much every modality that's out there: raindrop therapy, color therapy, light therapy, homeopathy, acupuncture, like all these different things, and just started learning as
Mhm.
much as I could and then applying those things. And my practice got really well known for, I was actually on the front cover of a veterinary magazine back in the mid 90s, saying that I was holistic before it was cool to be holistic, because it was not cool to be holistic back then.
Yeah.
And so it just built from there, and then I just realized that I had so many more tools in my little bag of tricks that I could make huge differences. And then I started really looking at what we were doing from a traditional standpoint and how bad some of those things were. The first being food, the second being putting pesticides in and on our animals all the time, over
Yeah.
vaccinating them. Like, all the things that we're taught this is the standard of care for good medicine. And when you stand back and look at it really critically, it's like that standard of care is kinda killing them.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. What do you think it was, though, that made the light bulb go off where you realized you put 2 and 2 together that, oh, I guess let's dive into the vaccines, where you realized those were problematic?
So, in holistic medicine, one of the things that we look at is, do we need to give this medication?
Mhm.
Do we need to give this vaccination? And I was trained, just like all other veterinarians, that vaccinations do no harm, that they're good for everybody, and it doesn't matter how often you give them because not going to cause a problem. And we just started seeing more and more and more vaccine reactions, autoimmune disease. And then Dr. Ron Schultz, who's an immunologist, started talking about doing titers and saying, some of these vaccinations, so a titer is a blood test that
Yeah.
says, yeah, you've got antibodies to that. You don't need to be boosted again. You're already protected. I equate it to being pregnant. You can't get more pregnant. You either are or you aren't. And
I
so,
love that.
you know, if you're vaccinated and you have antibodies against the disease, giving a booster doesn't make it better. It makes it worse, actually.
Yeah.
And so then studies started coming out saying, hey, some of these core vaccines last a lifetime. Why are we doing them every year? Because that's when I graduated, we were taught. You send out those postcards every year. This is how you get the animals in your office.
Mhm.
And when I really started looking at it, and we started doing a lot of titers in our practice because, I was known for doing things more holistically. So it was kind of a no brainer.
Mhm.
Let's look at these animals and see, do they still have protection? And 95% of them, they're good to go. Like, why are we poking them again and again and again? So it really just changed how I started looking at everything.
Mhm.
And every time a drug rep would come in with a new drug, I, instead of just saying, oh, yeah, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, I would say, well, let me read the drug insert. Let me see what research was done. And it is shocking. Like, some of these drugs hit the market and they've been tested on 200 dogs. And oh, by the way, 10 of them died or dropped out of the study, and they don't even include those. It's just like, oh, well, we could, like on food trials, if you do a food trial for, if I want to design a new diet and I want to do, not just say, okay, the computer says it's balanced. If I want to see, does it actually support good health? The food tests requires only 8 animals, so 8 dogs for 6 months. You feed them the same thing for 6 months, and you take blood work at the beginning and the end. There's only 4 parameters that are measured. The dogs can lose up to 10% of their body weight, doesn't matter, and 2 dogs can drop out. So, literally 6 out of 8 dogs have to survive the 6-month period, and then, "Yay, you did a food trial."
Yeah. I mean, human studies aren't much different.
No,
They're
exactly. And, like, I was asked at the Holistic Veterinary Medical Association this year, they've asked me to do a talk on the influence of big pet food and big pharma on veterinary medicine, and it is huge, huge influence.
Mhm.
So, when you take your dog to the veterinarian, they're going to say to you, "Oh, we only recommend food that is made by these 3 big companies because they're the ones that have all the influence. It's Mars, Nestle, Purina, and Hills,
Mhm.
which is owned by Colgate Palmolive. And so those are the big 3, and the veterinarians say, "Well, they're the only ones that are tried and tested." Well, yeah, when we test them, they've got all kinds of problems. They're
Mhm.
not complete and balanced even though they say they are.
Yeah.
60% of the dry foods and over 90% of the canned foods are not complete and balanced even though they're labeled as such. They're made with really poor quality ingredients. I mean, there's just so many reasons. Our pets are not made to eat dead, dry, brown, burnt balls of food. They're meant to eat real food with real vitamins and minerals, not everything being synthetic and ultra processed, just like us. And so, holistic group, which is a very small group of the 60,000 veterinarians in the country, if we get 300 at the holistic conference, we're doing really well,
Yeah.
which that is sad. And so then we have 59,700 who are saying, oh, no, only use food from these 3 big companies, and you can't make your own food, and don't give them any fresh food, don't give them people food and don't give them table food. I'm like, when did food become people food?" Like,
Let's yeah, I mean, if you go back to before there were pet foods in general, what do you think they ate? I mean, hello. But same thing we were eating, but they were eating it
yeah,
raw. So there's
mhm,
I know there's a lot of people that think you have to give them raw, that is their original diet. Do you feel like they have evolved from that to a degree where you don't necessarily have to do raw? I will say when we were getting our dog and she was a puppy, and I mean, at the time, I'm trying to think, I already had 1 child, so I was on to my 2nd, and I dove down the rabbit hole with the first one and all the things. It's like you said, once you start learning little things, you're like, "Wow, there's some miracles here with this and that," and then you start to trust other people's stories and think, maybe I shouldn't have my eyes so closed, and I should listen to these people that have these crazy stories that are not so crazy. But anyway, so I got the dog, and I remember everybody saying, "You gotta give her raw, you gotta give her raw," but then we were having a baby, and I didn't want to have this newborn little baby crawling around, and I'm putting raw food on the floor, not on the floor, but in a bowl, and then it's, like, all over the dog's mouth, and it's in a bowl that the dog or the baby's maybe gonna touch, and so that was my concern, and
Mhm.
so I went with, I think, a freeze-dried raw at the time, and then our dog ended up having, like, all these weird sensitivities to food, but, that's a whole 'nother thing. I was talking about it, I think, on the episode with Angela. We were talking about how when I got her as a puppy, she actually came to us, like, really overheated. She would go and lay on the vents and was just, like, super hot, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," I just knew this isn't normal because
Right.
it wasn't hot in the house.
Yep.
And so when I took her to our vet that was holistic, she gave me, like, all these different herbs and different things to basically detox her because she had had all the puppy vaccines,
Mhm.
and then it went away, and she was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when your dog is acting like that, there's internal heat, there's inflammation in the body. So basically you've got to cool all that down and calm
Yeah,
all that down. And unfortunately for puppies, when we get them, they're given way, way too many vaccines and dewormings and pesticide applications. I mean, it's just unfortunately that's kind of the way it is.
well, and I think breeders feel obligated. A lot of them are doing it for the sales, and, I mean, I guess why else are they doing it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, and the one we got ours from, I wish I would have spoke up, but I didn't say, like, "Hey, I'd like to be selective," or whatever,
Yeah.
because when he gave us the dog, he gave us this pamphlet, and in there, it kind of said in a roundabout way, "Just so you know, like, these vaccines can actually cause harm," and I was like, "Huh." Oh, okay. Like, maybe he wouldn't have been so offended if I was like, "Hey, hold off, please."
Yeah, really. Yeah, there is a group of natural rearing breeders. So for people who want to get puppies or kittens from breeders that are not starting with early vaccinations and loading them up with a bunch of chemicals, you can find them now, which
Yeah.
is a huge shift, and that's a really good thing.
Where can people find him? Because I think people are gonna listen and some of
I can't remember the exact
Okay.
website, but if you put it in the search engine, natural rearing breeders,
Okay.
because it's funny, I was at the bank and one of the bankers said to me, "Do you know where I can get a naturally raised Doberman?" And I was like, "Well, there's a website for that."
Yeah.
And so I went home and looked it up and then emailed it to him, and he was able to find quite a few natural rearing
Okay.
breeders. And so they have a lot of different breeds. So I would highly recommend that if somebody,
Okay.
really wants to go down that
Yeah.
holistic rabbit hole. Otherwise, problem is we separate our puppies and kittens way too young. They're taken away from their mamas at like 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Never buy anything in a pet store. That's like a breeding ground for everything bad. They're over vaccinated, over medicated, they're sick, they're exposed to everything. It's bad.
Yeah.
So find a breeder, but if you can find a natural one, highly recommended. And really they should for their best health and best socialization, the litter should stay together with mama for like 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And nobody does that. The breeders are usually by 7 or 8 weeks like get these things out of here.
Tired.
I've had enough.
I get that. But Judy, let's go back to the food. On the What do you think on
Oh, so
raw
raw
food?
feed. I forgot what the original question was.
I No, it's okay.
So my dogs eat kind of a combination. Mostly they eat raw, but a lot of times they're eating gently cooked. And when I travel, they get freeze dried because it's just easier to travel with that.
Yeah.
So all of those are good options. Like anything other than ultra processed kibble is a good option,
Yeah.
really. So we really want to avoid the ultra processed because that kibble that is an extruded kibble, it's an extrusion process, which is what the Kellogg's brothers developed for cereal. And we know how
Yeah.
awful that is for us.
Yeah.
So it's the same process. It's really high heat. And so the ingredients in that extruded dry kibble have undergone high heat processing about 5 times by the time you get the end
Okay.
product. Um, and so it doesn't the nutrition is literally cooked out of it, so they add synthetic vitamins and minerals back into it. So not the ideal way to
Yeah.
feed our pets, and in order to go through the extruder, it has to be high carbohydrate. You have to have a starch to hook it together,
Mm.
otherwise it just makes a big gooey mess, which is why it works so well to make cereal.
Yeah.
Our dogs and cats have 0 requirement for carbohydrates in their diet, 0. So they have a requirement for proteins, fats, fiber. So, a plant source for that. But, broccoli doesn't have starch. So when we look at that and we say, well, then why are we feeding something that is 50 to 60% carbohydrates when they have 0 requirement for that? So have they evolved? Like if we literally look at the science of evolution and look at their GI tract from what it was 1,000 years ago to what it is now, it hasn't changed very much.
Okay.
Their dentition hasn't changed very much. I mean,
Sure.
they're made to be metosauruses to, rip and tear and chew.
Well, and that's
So
something I'll just mention it briefly for people listening because we're humans. So I'm sure the human side, we also have a problem with that with the young ones. And I remember going to the dentist with my little one, like, well, what is she eating? I was like, she loves beef sticks. And they're like, oh, thank God. They're like, perfect. Cause like babies need that,
mhm,
or toddlers, I should say, they need their jaw to work hard and not just be on mush. But
right.
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So and there it's a myth that kibble will keep their teeth clean. That would be like your dentist saying, "Just eat crackers, it'll be fine." No, it doesn't work that way. So,
You'll
if
get
you're
fat, but your teeth will be clean.
yeah. So if you're feeding kibble because you think that's gonna keep their teeth clean, it's not. Dental care is a big thing for us and for our children. Brush twice a day, floss if you're really good. You know, that's what we need to do. And then we still go get our teeth cleaned once or twice a year. And then with our pets, we're like, we'll just ignore their teeth and feed them whatever and cross our fingers that it's all good. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's not.
Yeah. No,
So,
I
I
believe
mean, the
that.
gold standard is brush their teeth, but I think about 2% of pet owners actually do that. So
I do not. I wish I
I
did.
don't either. I've got too many. I've got 9 cats and 4 dogs. It
Yeah.
would take me all day.
But actually, I don't know why our dog's teeth are clean. Well, I mean,
Well,
I look at them and sometimes if there's like a chunk, I'll pick it off with
yeah.
my finger.
The larger breeds have better teeth. The smaller breeds, we've bred them completely wrong and they have really bad enamel. And so if you have a smaller breed of dog, Yorkies, Maltese, I have Cavaliers, they're going to have much worse dental
Mhm.
problems.
Yeah.
So it's going to require a lot more care and it's going to require those anesthetic dental cleanings, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's part of, we have messed with breeding all animals. We breed the cows to be double muscled so that we get more meat off of them. We bought a dairy cow, a Jersey dairy cow, so we have our own raw milk. These dairy cows are bred to make so much milk. Like her udder was so big after she had the calf that it caused huge sores
Oh,
under her back legs because it's just huge. And she makes 7 gallons of milk a day.
oh
The
my
calf needs like 2.
god.
This They're overbred, and, that's so that you can have less cows and get more milk, but we've literally screwed up the entire animal kingdom by how we breed, and so we see this in the smaller breeds of dogs. They've just been bred to have really crappy teeth, which is kinda sad. And it's
Yeah,
not something we bred for, it's just that it came out that way.
I know. Our little Maltipoo, she actually has double canines, top and bottom.
Right.
So I guess I gotta get those taken out. Haven't dealt
Uh-huh,
with it. I
uh-huh.
haven't dealt with it yet. The one vet was like, "She's gonna need, like, braces." I guess there's, like, doggy braces of some sort, and I was like,
Yeah,
"That's."
usually we just take the baby tooth, we take all those out. I mean, we've had some of those little baby sharks that not only do they have double canines, they'll have double incisors, double molars. It's like, oh my God, this dog has. But I would always give them until about 18 months to see if they would come out on their own.
Okay.
My youngest Cavalier, he has hydrocephalus. He came with all kinds of problems. He was run of the litter, and he had the extra canines. And at about 18 months, they finally came out on their own. I was like, all right, good.
I know, I was hoping with some tugging with toys and things that they would, but they are, like, not even loose at all.
Again, big pharma has a huge influence on veterinary medicine, but I get emails every day from people saying, I can't even, the vet will not even, this is really, talk
Yeah.
about an oxymoron. We won't see your pet unless they're up to date on vaccines. except the only way to get them up to date on vaccines is for you to see them.
Well, yeah, the little
Pick
one,
one.
she needs the teeth out, and when she needed to be spayed, this one vet was like, "She has to have this," it was like, I don't even know how many vaccines it was. I was like, "Well, why?" And they said she needs them, blah, 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 but they said they would do them the day of the
Yeah.
surgery, and I was like,
No,
"But
never
then"
ever allow that.
I was like, "That doesn't even make sense, though. She
No,
won't even
'cause
have had time to
right, she's not
straighten them."
protected against anything, and so this is
Who
where,
does that
like,
serve?
statements like that, there was just a in the research I'm doing for this presentation, there was a veterinarian in Texas who owns a big boarding kennel. And canine influenza became something to talk about 10, 12 years ago. And there's two kinds of flu that dogs can get, but it doesn't happen very often. I mean, you'll get a pocket, like, a boarding kennel will have an outbreak. There was an outbreak years ago at a dog show because the judge, when you go to look at the bite of the dog at the show, the owner is supposed to open the mouth and show the teeth.
Mm.
This judge touched every single dog and opened all their mouths, and one of them happened to be carrying influenza. So everybody got sick, and then everybody left that show and went around the country to
Oh.
all the other shows, and it was a big debacle. But this veterinarian who owns this big boarding clinic in Texas, he said, "Oh, for years, the vaccine company kept telling me we had to have every dog coming into this boarding kennel be vaccinated for influenza." And he said, "I resisted, resisted, resisted. And they finally wore me down. And I said, okay, we're going to require influenza vaccine for every dog who comes to the kennel." It's a series of two vaccines in order for them to be protected. So you've got to give two vaccines at least 2 weeks apart and then still have a couple of weeks. So you got to start this process at least a
Mm.
month in advance in order for it to actually give protection to the dog while it is at the boarding facility. Well, the requirements now are the day that they come in for boarding, they can get their first influenza vaccine. So it's not helping. At this point, that is bad marketing. It makes you look like a really bad veterinarian because you're saying, yeah, well, I know it's not protecting them against anything, but we sold that vaccine.
Yeah.
This is going to give us a bad name.
It feels like a cash grab, and it's
Oh, yeah.
but it leaves you with the 2 questions, right? It's like, "Okay, is this a cash grab, or are you just that, like, stupid?" You know,
Well,
like
yeah. I'm like, you had the same immunology class that I did, dude. Like, we learned this.
yeah, I mean, I don't wanna call anybody stupid, but it's like, what I'm not that
Well,
dumb,
and
so
he readily admits, like, I know this isn't protecting them, but then when they come back in 6 months or next year, they will have had their two. And I'm like, and some of those dogs are never coming back to be boarded again. And
yeah,
anyway, like that kind of stuff makes me nuts. And to say, in order for your dog to get spayed, it has to have DHLP, corona, kennel cough,
yeah.
influenza, rabies. No, like I can see saying, yes, your dog has to have a rabies vaccine because, rabies is pretty deadly. And if you get, especially if you're doing a dental and you're working in the mouth of the dog or the
But
cat,
wouldn't you know if a dog was rabid?
pretty much. Yeah. But
That's been my thing,
the
and then, like
incubation period for it is actually can be like 6 months.
oh, I see.
But if they're not symptomatic, they're not shedding.
Yeah,
So let's
okay.
say you get bitten by a stray dog and they come pick up the stray dog, they're only on a 10-day hold. And if they don't show symptoms within that 10 days, they weren't shedding rabies in their saliva at that point.
Okay,
So
so let's talk about rabies for a second. How do dogs get rabies? Is it just by being bit by something
bitten by a
rabid?
rabid animal.
And
And
okay.
so in this country, depending on where you live, different animals carry it. So in the Northeast, it's a raccoon problem.
Mm,
Where I live in the Southeast, it's more of a fox problem, which I have foxes living on my farm, so that's kind of funny. And in the Southwest, it's a bat problem.
mm,
So there's
okay.
different forms of rabies, and the bat one is kind of the worst because
Bats are gross.
they're gross. Some people love them and think they're really cute. I'm not in that group. The problem with if a bat gets in your house, like if you find a dead bat on your floor and you've got animals in your house, there's no way to know if your animal was bitten because bat bites are even for yourself. They're these little
Mm.
tiny razor needle teeth and you don't even see the bite.
Oh,
So my
okay.
aunt and uncle had a bat get in their bedroom one night. They didn't have any animals, but they had to get rabies prophylaxis treatment because there's no way to know if they were bitten by that bat. And I'm like, great. So you got a whole series of rabies
Oh
vaccines
my god.
because you can't tell. The thing is you want to get the bat and have the bat tested.
Yeah.
before you
Yeah,
go through all that. But anyway, so they end up getting
ideally.
rabies shots. So I get that, like, I want to protect my staff. I can understand it.
I
Um,
can understand parts of it, to the bat one, but if you don't have bats and,
right.
like, my dogs don't
And
go anywhere really. They're
right.
in
Mine
my
too.
yard, like,
I
I'm gonna
know.
know if they were bit, and then we're gonna have to deal with it.
Right.
So
Exactly. So I get it. I was bitten by a rabid kitten once. It's not fun, It's like there was this kitten. I was working emergency service. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. These people brought in this little stray kitten. Stray kittens are a big rabies risk. The cat people are going to get really mad at me. They're like, "Ah, you just made everybody not want to pick up stray kittens." I'm like, well, you know what? They're acting weird. So this little stray kitten, 2 o'clock in the morning, they bring in. They're like, "It's been hanging out at our apartment complex. It just isn't. It seems sick." I do the full
yeah.
exam on the kitten, like, open its mouth, listen to it, like, take its temperature, do all this stuff, and it's just sitting there looking at me, everything is fine, and then we're standing there talking, and, I'm like, "Okay, well, we probably need to get some lab work or something," and all of a sudden, this little kitten, like, this little pound and a half kitten, leaps off the table and attacks me, attacks my technician, like, we're both getting bitten all over the place,
Oh my gosh.
and my technician goes, "I think we should test it for rabies."
Oh.
I went, "Yeah, you're probably right."
Oh, no.
So both of us ended up going through rabies prophylaxis, and the people who had brought it in, even though they weren't bitten, they had handled it. So it's like, okay, now we have all these people who are getting rabies vaccines. It's not good.
Oh, man. Yeah, we
So
had
I get it, but again, there was no way that cat could have been vaccinated before it saw me because it was a stray and it was its first vet visit ever. So,
and last.
and last, yes. So, I understand where the vets are coming from. They're trying to protect themselves, their staff. It's kind of like life
Yeah.
or death.
Well, so, okay, if we're gonna talk about rabies vaccines, do you have an opinion on the 1 year versus the 3-year? Because there's
Well, so
option.
they're basically the same exact vaccine, but we do need to talk about rabies vaccines because it's getting uglier these days.
Yeah,
So, the first vaccine that your dog or cat ever gets, it's only good for 1 year. That's how long they
yeah,
say the immunity lasts. Any vaccine they get after that, 3 years. So I don't care if they got one at a year of age and their next one is when they're 10 years old, it's a 3-year vaccine. Even if you so what a lot of veterinarians do is, okay, that one was good for 1 year, and you come in a year later and they're like, "Oh, it's been a year and a day. Now this one's not a 3-year anymore. We have to start over." You
yeah.
don't have to start over. So that's the first thing. Second thing,
Is one safer than the other?
no, they're the same vaccine.
Okay.
Literally the same vaccine.
Well, I would just think the 3-year was a little more constituted in some sort
No,
of way,
nope,
or okay,
nope, nope. Same
okay.
thing. I had a phone call with one of the vaccine company people one year because I was trying to get them to admit that the 1 and 3-year were exactly the same thing in the vials. They wouldn't they talked circles around it. It was just they wouldn't say it wasn't, and they wouldn't say it was. It was
So the 1 year is essentially gonna
just
last you 3 years as well?
no,
Oh, it won't?
no.
Okay, it's
The
not.
first vaccine they ever get, it's a 1-year vaccine.
Okay,
That's it.
okay.
After that, it's a 3-year.
Okay, well, you were saying they were the same, so I was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, could they get like, could you do a titer and find out that, oh, yeah, they still have antibodies? Yeah, they might. Like, when I was bitten by that kitten, I had my rabies I had a experimental rhesus monkey rabies vaccine senior year of vet school because that's what they do to vet students. "Oh, here we have a new experimental vaccine." Great.
Oh my gosh.
But I have to say the vaccine was pretty good. We got 2 doses because I was bitten by that kitten, like, literally 20 years later, and they did a titer on me, still good.
Oh
So
my
so
gosh.
yay, rhesus monkey vaccine. So it worked. So we don't know. That one that we give that we say is good for 1 year, that's just the legalities of it.
Okay.
Legally, it's good for 1 year, no matter what. It doesn't matter which vaccine you use, it's 1 year. So the problem is there is a preferred killed vaccine that
Mhm.
is thimerosal free. So
Yeah, I asked for that at a vet, and they looked at me like I was crazy, and
half
what
of
do
them
you
don't know that there is such a thing, so that's
they
the first
didn't.
problem. I've had people say, "Look, I'll buy a whole tray of it," because they can't just buy 1 dose. Like, I will pay for the entire tray, and the vets
Mhm,
still go, "Nope, won't order it." So that's a little crazy.
mhm.
But now we have the new self-amplifying RNA rabies vaccine.
No.
Not good, do not allow it. It's called Novavax, and this new Novavax technology, they have an influenza vaccine, a feline leukemia vaccine and a rabies vaccine with this self-amplifying RNA. It was tested for like 14 days. We have no idea if it's shedding, like the vaccines that we won't mention. We have no idea if it's shedding that in the environment. We don't know who's being exposed to what. I can tell you that I am getting emails once or twice a week from people whose animals have had that vaccine and develop severe autoimmune disease, dying, anaphylactic reactions. Like, you need to ask, is this the new Novavax self-amplifying RNA vaccine? Just say, is this the RNA vaccine? And if it is, decline it and go somewhere else. Like, I don't, the rabies vaccines that we've had for years are just fine.
How
Why?
how new is that one?
Within the last few months.
Oh, okay.
I think it
Because
was in
we got
Canada.
our puppy got it. I think it was like I think it's less than a year.
Yeah, I think it was in Canada before it came here. But and a lot of the complaints I'm getting are from people in Canada. And I'm like, I know who I would go to here. Like, we would go to the FDA and report an adverse event. I don't even know who to report to in Canada. So I'm like, I wish I could help you more. I mean, I can kind of help walk you through, like, how do we get your animal to live through this? But I don't even know who the reporting people are. I mean, obviously, you should report it to the company that makes the vaccine, but
They
a
don't
lot
care.
no, they don't care, and a lot of times the veterinarians will deny that the autoimmune disease that your pet is experiencing is related to the vaccine, and that's where the vaccine and drug companies get away with literally murder, because the veterinarians are like, "Oh, that pesticide couldn't have caused the seizures that your dog is now having." It's like, it says right on the label it can cause seizures, and you're saying it's not related? Like, if your animal doesn't have a side effect within 2 minutes of giving something, they're like, "Oh, it can't possibly be related."
Why do you think they act that way? Do you think they're naive or
A little bit naive and a little bit of, they don't wanna feel guilty of, "I gave this, I caused this."
Mhm.
You know, our goal is to do no harm. We say that in our oath, and our goal is to help animals, not hurt them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the drug reps come in and say, "Yep, no problems, no problems. We've sold 5 million doses of this." Like, there was a study that, oh my God, there was smoke coming out my ears when this one landed in my inbox last week. That somebody said that they looked at all of the adverse reaction reports in the Netherlands and Europe in general for the isoxazoline flea and tick pesticides,
Okay.
not the combination ones, but just the single ones. So Brevecto, NexGard, Credelio, and Simparica. They said there was only one report in the Netherlands over 9 years, and only 79 in all of Europe over 9 years. And I'm like, that's pretty funny, because I have the EMA, which is the European FDA. I have their adverse event reports. It's in the hundreds of thousands. I don't know where. And this email was
Mm.
sent out with this study to all veterinarians. And so veterinarians are going to go to the client and say, well, look, here's this study. There was only 79 reports in 9 years. Yeah, the chances of your animal having a reaction are really slim. There's a Facebook group that's a Netherlands Does Brevecto Kill Dogs? It has 57,400 people in it. You can't tell me there's only one report of a problem in the Netherlands when 57,000 people are in a Facebook group complaining.
Yeah.
Where does this come from? And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway.
Okay, so that brings me to I'm curious about, like, the Heart Guard medication. I think that's the one we do
Mhm.
for I do that one because we have mosquitoes pretty bad here in Texas. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
heartworm in the South, particularly in Texas, like whole Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, big deal. There's a lot of it there.
Yeah,
There's a lot more stray dogs. You know, you don't get cold enough in the winter for the mosquitoes to die off, and
I wish. What
yeah.
does it take? What temperature does it take?
Well, believe it or not, in order for, so the heartworm life cycle is long and convoluted, but the way it's spread, a mosquito has to bite an infected dog, and then it has to fly around for 2 weeks with the little baby heartworm larvae in its salivary glands.
Mm,
And in that 2-week period that the mosquito is flying around, those little larvae are maturing to the next stage. And so then that mosquito finds your dog and bites it and injects those little baby larvae into your
okay.
dog. Then it takes 6 to 9 months from the time the mosquito bites your dog for the larvae to keep maturing and going from an L2 to an L3 to all the different larval stages. And somewhere along there, you're giving a dose of heartworm medication, and what it's doing is it kills certain stages of the larvae as they're migrating
Mhm.
through the body.
Mhm.
So eventually they land in the heart and develop into an adult heartworm. So that whole thing takes, so if you get a heartworm positive, didn't happen yesterday. Your dog, that's something
Yeah.
that happened to your dog 6 to 9 months ago. It's taken that long for it to develop. But that 2 week period that it spends in the salivary glands of the mosquito, the temperature has to be above 80 degrees around the clock.
Mm.
And so you have those really hot summers where it's
Yeah.
80 degrees at night and you're like, "Oh my god, is it ever gonna," like, it doesn't even cool off at night here.
Yeah.
And so the further south we get in the country, the we get closer to the equator, we have more heartworms. Go to the Caribbean, to the islands there, heartworms are rampant.
See, I don't treat during the winter because we don't have mosquitoes. Like, when the mosquitoes are not flying around, I stop treating, which the
Right.
vets here, like,
Go crazy about.
yeah,
Uh,
I don't tell them this, but I'm like,
yeah. No, we did that. So my practices were in New Jersey. And so most of my clients would stop about November 1st, and then we would start up sometime in June. And so they were giving it maybe 6 months out of the year, 5 to 6 months, and that was very effective for us. New Jersey has swamps and mosquitoes, and especially where we were. We were in South Jersey where it's farmland, not city. So it can be done seasonally, but there are also areas of the country where the heartworm disease is really not there. Like Colorado, they don't have mosquitoes, they don't have ticks, they don't have fleas. It's great. Like,
"Oh,
they're a
I'm
good
moving to
reason to move to
Colorado.
Colorado right there.
I'm going there."
Um, so you get rid of all those things. So it depends where you live. The thing that people need to know is there are heartworm preventatives that are pretty non-toxic,
Okay.
Heartgard being one of them. It's
Okay.
ivermectin, and we know
Okay.
that ivermectin has so many uses now that,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but there are some dogs who are a little sensitive to it, but it is in a low dose, and the other one that I like is milbemycin, which is Interceptor.
Okay.
There are newer things out now. The drug companies, it's all about labeling. So, Heartgard was the first monthly heartworm preventative, and it just prevented heartworms. Then milbemycin, Interceptor, came out a few years later. Well, milbemycin kills intestinal parasites as well.
Mm.
So they got to put on the label, one pill kills heartworms and or prevents heartworms and intestinal parasites. So what do the HeartGuard people do? They're like, "Oh, we need to be able to put that on our label too." So they added parental pamoate, which is an intestinal dewormer for hookworms and roundworms. So now you get the HeartGuard Plus. The Plus is the intestinal dewormer, which again, in the South, where it, Southeast, where it never gets dry. I mean, it's
Yeah.
where we have problems. We do have more intestinal parasites there too. So kind of makes sense. And it's still pretty safe. So those are fine once a month. Well,
There's another I know, and there's another brand at the vet that they always offer me. I'm like, "No, I just want the
yeah,
the basic one that's gonna
you
do
want the
the job."
basic one. So one of the ones that they're pushing really hard is Simparica Trio,
Okay.
which has moxidectin for the heartworms. It has, I think it's parental for the intestinal parasites, and it has an isoxazoline, which
Mm.
is the Simparica part, which is flea and tick. So they get to put lots of prevention on their label. It's like, look, we're preventing everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're also killing a lot of animals, so not so good. So you
No.
you don't want these big combination products. I know it gets so much simpler. Like, oh, I just have to do one thing and it takes care of everything. The other thing that is very popular and very deadly is called ProHeart, and it's an injection to prevent heartworms. There's ProHeart 6 that lasts 6 months. It's moxidectin, and it killed so many dogs when it first came out that they pulled it off the market, which is shocking because they never pull
Yeah.
anything off the market. They pulled it off the market. It came back on the market a few years later, no changes in the formulation. It came back, the FDA said, well, veterinarians just have to give a handout to the owner saying that we could see liver failure or death or
Mm.
seizures or, you know, and then the owner has to okay it. I've never talked to anybody who's ever gotten that handout. So it didn't change it at all. And it
Mm.
killed a bunch of dogs still in the market. Well, that wasn't good enough. They said, "Oh, coming to the vet twice a year to get this injection for heartworms, that's really inconvenient. Let's make a 12-month shot." So they tripled the dose of moxidectin, and now you one shot all year, protection against heartworms. It is like, don't do it. Just say no.
Just give
Just
them
say,
the
"You know
2.
what? I can do this once a month. I'm smart enough. I can set a reminder in my little computer that I walk around with in my pocket, and it can tell me, "Hey, time to give the dog the pill." Like, play it safe.
Yeah.
Don't because these drugs, the isoxazolines, the moxidectin, they're neurotoxins. And so they affect the neurologic system. That's the brain and the nerves. So we get tremors, we get seizures, we get death. Just say no.
Yeah.
When I graduated, we only had daily heartworm preventative. So we went from daily to monthly.
Yeah.
Yay,
Yeah.
much easier. And actually the monthly heart guard or interceptor is a step up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't have a problem with them for people who live in areas of the country. There there is a holistic veterinarian in Texas who has an ebook. It's something like Naturally Healthy Dogs Don't Get Heartworms,
Hmm.
and it is true.
Hmm.
If your dog has a really good immune system, if they are bitten by an infected mosquito, their immune system will attack those
Hmm.
larvae that are injected, and it'll kill them because it's a
Okay.
foreign body invader. And there's a great YouTube video. It's a time lapse thing where they actually have a blood smear under the microscope, and there's a immature larva swimming around in it. And over a period of about 48 hours, you see the white blood cells come in, surround this thing, attach to it, and eat it.
Hmm.
And it's gone. And that's what a healthy immune system does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I would say 95% of our pets don't have healthy immune systems.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. And for me, like this conversation and the information is just about informed consent and understanding your options and
Mhm.
what's really necessary, what's not, what's not necessary. And
Exactly.
if it is necessary, what are the choices like we're
Right.
talking about with the
Right,
vaccine?
and even for flea and tick, I mean, my sister lives in Massachusetts, it's Lyme Central, like, everybody goes crazy,
Yeah.
but I don't recommend the Lyme vaccine, it's horrible, it's
No.
not very effective,
No.
a lot of reactions and problems with it, but she lives in a very, very high tick area, she's got 5 acres, it's wooded, it's a mess. So, her yard for her dogs, she doesn't have a lot of shrubbery and things where ticks like to hang out, she keeps the grass mowed very short, and she has it sprayed with cedar oil
Mhm.
every month,
Okay.
because that kills ticks.
Okay.
So, there are a lot of natural things that you can do and not have to use all the chemicals. And the big thing with a lot of the flea and tick chemicals is people think, oh, well, my dog won't get Lyme disease if I use these chemicals. Not true, because for almost all those chemicals, the tick or the flea has to bite your dog in order to ingest the chemical and die.
Yeah.
So once they bite your dog, they can transmit Rocky Mountain spotted fever, babesiosis,
Yeah.
anaplasmosis, ehrlichiosis, Lyme disease. Like there's a dozen tick-borne diseases. So the goal is not to have the tick ever bite your dog. And
Mhm.
the natural methods actually work better at repelling than any of those chemicals don't repel.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of education that we're trying to give people. Don't rely on these chemicals to prevent your pets from getting these other things, which actually are very treatable as long as you diagnose them
Yeah.
early on.
Well, and for me, because I have Lyme disease. I wanna say had, I don't know, whatever, because it's like I deal with it. I mean, I'm far more functional than I was. But with our dog, I remember she got a tick on her, and then I was like, "Oh," and I realized, they were in our yard, and she was roaming through the bushes, but we actually had her on and I wish I could remember the name of it, but now we just don't get them anymore because 'cause we're more in the city, but it was some sort of B vitamin, and it's just I guess, like, the high B vitamin levels in the bloodstream make
Yeah.
them not
B vitamins, garlic,
pet. Yeah, I can't
yeah,
remember
there's
the
so
name
many
of it.
things that
Yeah,
so there's one Springtime made one, but there's a lot of companies now that are
yeah,
making like powders that you can add to the food. We use essential oil sprays. One of the best things for your yard, you can have somebody come in and spray peppermint oil, cedar oil. You can also put beneficial nematodes. You can spray your yard with those, and they
okay,
don't allow ticks and fleas to mature. So that's a really good. A lot of people in the South will treat their yards with that. So there's just and what the other thing that people don't realize is the life cycle of the flea and tick only is 5% of its time on your pet. The other 95% is in the environment. And if you're hyper focused on only treating your pet, you're missing 95% of the flea and tick population. So
yeah,
we need to be looking at how do we keep them out of the environment that our pets are in.
mhm, okay, yeah. Is there Can people spray that stuff on their own, the cedar oil? Can you
Yeah,
just buy it online?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There are some companies that have yard sprays that you hook up to your hose
Yeah.
and just like you would with fertilizer or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can spray them yourself. The nematodes, we sell those and you add water to them and spray them.
Okay. Judy, can you tell us about the food recipes that you've formulated for you said there is a company that sells dog food that you have given them the formula for.
Yeah,
And
so
is this raw? Is it what kind of food is it?
gently cooked. They sell raw and gently cooked. All of my recipes that they make are all gently cooked, so they're
Okay.
steamed very lightly.
Okay.
Um, So I am a certified veterinary food therapist. It's not the same as being a board certified nutritionist. So I use food from a Chinese medicine perspective. Everything that we put into our bodies or in our pets' bodies, food wise or herbs, it's
Mhm.
going to have an effect on the body. So, like your little dog that was really hot, we would say, okay, well, then we don't want to feed it chicken, lamb, venison, goat. Those are energetically very hot. They're going to add more heat to the body. So
Mhm.
we look at it and we say, okay, well, rabbit, pork,
Mhm.
turkey, duck, those are going to be cooling. Let's look for a food that has those ingredients in it.
Yeah.
So there's a company called All Provide in Norcross, Georgia. Become very good friends with them over the years. And I was actually introduced to them by one of my Cavalier owner friends, and she originally sent me their formulations when the company first opened up and said, "What do you think of these?" And so I looked at them and I said, "Well, if it were me, I would make this tweak, that tweak, whatever." Finally met the people of the company in person about a year later, and they said, "Well, everything that you said in all those emails throughout the year, like you would tweak this, you would change that, we did all those things." And I was like, "Really? You don't even know who I am?" And they're like, "Yeah, but you seem to really know what you're talking about." And I'm like, "I'm just using food therapy."
Yeah.
So we developed a line of food that's called constitutions. And so all of us from a Chinese medicine perspective, we have a certain element personality. So wood, fire, water, earth, metal. And so I designed diets based on that. And so there's a pet personality quiz on our website. It's actually on All Provides website as well. So you can take the pet personality quiz and
That's
figure out
cool.
what your dog or cat is, and then it's based on, like, are they hot? Are they cold? Are they showing, like, do they have tummy upsets? Do they
Yeah.
have seizures? Whatever. You put
Okay.
in all the symptoms and everything. And then once you decide what their personality is, because you'll be checking boxes and you'll have some boxes under every one of them, but you're going to have one that really stands out. It's like, oh,
Okay.
okay. Like I'm a wood personality. I haven't figured out my husband yet. So my mother is a metal. Like when you know that, we have a human personality quiz too. If you want to figure all that stuff out, it's really fun.
That's
But once you figure out where they have an excess or a deficiency, then it tells you which recipe would be the best one
okay.
for them. And then we have the recipes for all those on our website. So if you want to make it yourself, you can
Okay.
make it yourself. We have recipes for all kinds of different things on our website. So if you have an animal with heart disease, kidney disease, we have recipes for dogs and cats. A lot of recipes are in my books as well.
Okay.
Um, Food therapy is so powerful. Like we just don't realize what an effect we can have on ourselves. And
Mhm.
obviously, eating organic, free range, grass fed, blah, blah, blah is going to be good for everybody. But if you're having a lot of reflux or you have chronic bowel issues or you have dry skin, like you can treat all that with food. It's so cool.
Yeah. Well, our dog, when we were moving from California to Texas, she got into some fries in the car, and then from there on out, she had diarrhea and was, like, super, super sick. I'm like, "What's going on with this dog?" And, I mean, we'd obviously taken her out in a lot of public places. I didn't know if she had parvo or what was happening, but she seemed okay other than the diarrhea, and then took her to this holistic vet who was, like, basically does it for marketing. They're terrible, but anyway, I mean, I think probably over $1,000 later, still no solution, and then I go to the pet food store, and they start talking to me about the food and whatever, and they're like, "Well, let's give her some pumpkin, let's get her off of chicken." Dogs that are having stomach upset, chicken is not usually and actually to this day, she cannot eat chicken.
Yeah.
If she eats another dog's food because it's happened, she actually will get diarrhea. So
Yeah.
but she can have lamb. You were saying you grouped
Ham is
chicken and
hot,
lamb.
but it's a different protein, and so
Yeah.
we chicken is probably the number 1 besides grains, but chicken is probably the number 1 intolerance. It's not a true allergy unless,
Mhm.
like, if they swell up in their face and trouble breathing, that's a true allergy, which
Yeah.
we don't see very often. But it's an intolerance. And part of the reason that chicken is such an issue is the vaccines, a lot of them are grown on chicken egg cultures.
Mm,
So we're sensitizing them. And then once they develop leaky gut at some point, which as puppies, when they get all those vaccines and everything, we end up with leaky gut. And so then larger proteins are being exposed to the bloodstream that's going through those swollen cells in the intestine, and it just sensitizes the body. The body's like, well, chicken's a foreign invader, and chicken is ubiquitous in pet food because it's the cheapest protein source. So the body says that's a foreign invader. Every time I see that, I'm going to have a reaction. And then you get
yeah.
diarrhea. So it is now I've had dogs that have had that issue. And so I'll fix their gut and put them on something else. Usually I go to rabbit or pork for 6 months. And then I can reintroduce not a
Mhm.
chicken dog food, but fresh chicken,
Okay.
fresh, well raised chicken.
See, I'm
Uh,
scared to give her even fresh chicken because I
yeah.
don't want her to have
Yeah.
diarrhea.
So, yeah. But you've got to go through that healing phase. And so when I reintroduce it after 6 months of getting everything back to normal, 90% of them can go ahead and eat it. But,
Okay.
it's also easy to avoid that. If you know that's an issue, just avoid it.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
simple.
So, for people that are buying let's just for briefly, I know we gotta wrap this up, but conventional dog food, I mean, what is the most surprising, concerning ingredient you would find listed on a bag of dog food?
Okay. So, first of all, the words natural and holistic mean nothing. So, they can put that on the worst crap in the store. There's nothing I would buy in the grocery store or most of the big box stores for my pets. So, the worst ingredients, there's a couple things. Rendered ingredients. So, that's going to be unnamed ingredients like meat meal. Meat of what? That could be anything. So, particularly, like, for your dog, if there was something that said meat meal, I guarantee you there's some chicken in there somewhere because we don't
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
an unnamed ingredient. Animal digest, that's another rendered ingredient. Propylene glycol,
Mm,
it's kinda related to antifreeze, and it's outlawed for use in cat food finally, but it's a preservative, and you don't want it in there. Ethoxyquin, BHA, BHT, all these preservatives, you don't want them in there. I mean, I would just avoid big bags of extruded dry kibble. It is just they're all gonna have if it's an extruded kibble, it's gonna have rendered ingredients in it, and
yeah.
you just don't want them. There's a lot of toxins in there, and there's a veterinary nutritionist out there who absolutely hates me, and she keeps finding all of my podcasts,
Oh,
and
boy.
keeps making her own videos about, how awful I am because I say that there's dog DNA that's been found in pet food and there's euthanasia solution that's been found in pet food. And she's like, that is not true. The FDA regulates that. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the study from 2023 that found dog DNA. Here's the lawsuit against the dog DNA in the pet food. Like, I'm sorry, I speak the truth,
Yeah,
and I have a shield, I have protection, I'm fine because I'm speaking the truth,
yeah.
and you can make fun of me all you want, I don't care. People are like, "We should report her." I'm like, "Report me to who for what?" Like, "Here's the studies, here, I'll just post all the studies for you."
Yeah.
So, I think people just need to have their eyes opened up.
Have those studies, send them to me, and I'll drop them in the show notes.
Oh, sure. Oh, so a really good website is truthaboutpetfood.com.
Okay,
Susan Thixton, she's been the consumer advocate at the Association of Animal Feed Control Officials that basically
okay.
have regulated or set the rules for the regulations for pet food forever. And in that room, there's FDA officials, Center for Veterinary Medicine officials, all the big pet food companies, and all the people who want to get their ingredients approved for use in pet food. And then out of the 500 people in the room, there's usually 3 or 4 consumer advocates. Like they gang up against us really bad.
Ugh.
So Susan's dog died many, many years ago from bone cancer, and her veterinarian said, "Yeah, this probably came from the ethoxyquin preservative that's in the pet food that you're feeding." And it lit a fire under her, and she has spent her entire career speaking out and posting all of the studies and telling the truth about pet food. And it is pretty scary. So, truthaboutpetfood.com. Highly recommended for people to go there and read some of her information. And she puts out something every year called The List, which is the list of foods that I have a list too. Mine's shorter than hers. And it's only because she does a lot more research than me. Uh, but it's the foods that she would be willing to feed her own pets. And she lets you know, are these human grade ingredients? Are these organic ingredients? The companies cannot pay to get on her list, and they
Mhm.
have to actually submit all their bills of lading for every ingredient in their food to her so she can
She
look at
means
them
business.
like it's proof. Yes, here's proof. We're buying it from human grade. This is where we're getting it from. This is what's in here. And then she also tells you how much it'll cost per day to feed your pet. So, if you're being a little more budget conscious, you can be like, okay, well, yeah, that I can do that one.
Mm,
So very, very worthwhile. And she keeps us up to date on all the recalls and what's going on in the pet food world. So
okay.
very good.
Okay. Well, so to wrap it up, what do you say? Like, how do we wrap this up? Is it like, okay, number one, let's focus on food for our pets. Let's make sure we're getting them good, nutritious food that's actually beneficial for their bodies.
Yep. Number one.
Two, yeah, two, let's look at the vaccines and look at which ones we're actually giving and choose what's
Yes.
right for the area that we're living in. And like we talked about the thimerosal free. Okay.
Yeah, and really look at your pet's lifestyle. So when you go to your veterinarian and they say, "Well, this is the vaccines that we give all the dogs." Yours is not all the dogs. Yours
Yeah.
is an individual dog. Does your dog go to boarding, grooming, daycare? Does
Mhm.
your dog go on airplanes? Does your dog go to a dog park? Are your dogs like mine? They go in my backyard.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you wanna have that conversation about what is it that my dog really needs? And this book, the Raising Naturally Healthy Pets, the longest chapter in there is on vaccines. And it talks about, how the diseases are spread. So you can look at it and say, well, my dog has no exposure to that. Why
Mhm.
would I need that vaccine? How long the vaccines last? Is this a vaccine that has a lot of side effects? So that's information that this is empowerment. You walk in and you go, well, I know that my dog's not exposed to these 5 things, so
Mhm.
I don't need any of those. Let's talk about the one or two that you might be exposed to. Can I do a titer? How often do I need to do that? Have a conversation about your individual pet.
It's a hard conversation though, because 'cause I've had it
It
and
is.
they still are like, "But they need it." They just say that, "But they need it." I'm like, "But she doesn't go anywhere."
Right, yeah.
"But she
But
needs
no,
it."
she doesn't. Yeah. So it's great. You can take this with you. You can highlight the parts, that apply to your pet. And some veterinarians are okay with it and some of them get freaked out and angry. But it's not about having an argument with them. It's about being the advocate for your pet and saying, "Yeah, really, no, like I don't want to do all this." I have a good friend who is in Texas and she needed help with her dog with the problem it was having. And I said, "Well, just send me all your vet records. Let me look at it and see what they've used for treatment and what you're feeding and blah blah blah." And she sent it to me and as I'm going through the records, I'm like, "This dog is getting vaccinated every single year for rabies and everything else." And so I called her up and I said, "Why are you vaccinating your dog for rabies every year?" She said, "I didn't know I was." I'm like, "Don't you read your receipts?" I said, "Your dog is getting vaccinated every year for rabies." And so I said, "Call your vet." And so she called him up and she said, "Why?" And he said, "It's state law in Texas. They had to be vaccinated for rabies every year." I looked it up. I said, "Call him back and tell him it's not state law in Texas.
Mm,
Here's the statute, here's the
yeah.
Texas law." So she called him back and he goes, "Well, it's for our county or town, whatever."
Oh
So
boy.
I looked that up and I said, "Not that either." Called him back again. And he said, "Well, it's my rule for my practice." And she
Oh
said,
my gosh.
"Well, I guess my dogs are going somewhere else from now on because that's a dumb rule."
Yeah.
And that was actually when I called the vaccine company and had the conversation with them about the vaccine that he was using because he said he was using the one labeled for 1 year. And so I said, "Well, then I want to find out, is that 1 year vaccine the same exact thing that's in the 3-year vial?"
Yeah.
And they never said it was, but they never said it wasn't. So yeah,
Mm.
that's the kind of fun that we get into. And he was just using it as literally a way to make more money. Like,
Mm.
there was no good reason for that, none.
I know. I know it.
So, read your receipts, read your records, ask for copies of everything, and the other thing is if your veterinarian gives you medication, any medication, I don't care what it's for, ask what the side effects are so that you know what to watch for one thing,
Yeah.
and 2, you can make an informed decision like, "Oh, do I wanna risk that?" And if they say there are no side effects, That's the wrong answer because there are side effects to drinking too much water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have dogs that die every summer from drinking too much water. So,
Oh,
again, we all carry around those little mini computers in our pockets. If they can't give you the answer before you leave the building and before you accept the medication, just put it in your search engine real quick. What are the potential side effects of whatever it is? Read them, and then you can have another discussion if it scares you. Or you can go, yeah, not bad. I can do that. Okay. They might
yeah.
get diarrhea. Not so bad. You know,
Been there,
I don't
done
really
that.
want that, but if you look at the side effects and it says, "Yeah, there's warnings on it for seizures," maybe I don't
Yeah.
want that one, and then that gives you the option to say, "Is there an alternative? Is there something else I could use instead?"
Yeah.
And maybe there is.
Yeah. We actually just took our dog to the emergency vet on Saturday, I think it was just a few days ago, but she was, like, vomiting and diarrhea and bloody diarrhea, and I was like, "Well, like, it's coming out both ends, like, I don't think she has a blockage, she's probably okay." I was like, "Man, it's my daughter's little dog, she's gonna be so sad if something happens."
Yep.
So, took her and, like, the first question he was asking was about the food, and I was like, "Okay." Like, my husband took her because 'cause I've been sick, and I was like, "Alright, but," I said, "the other dog's been eating the food just fine. We are also at the very bottom of the bag, like, literally had probably
Yeah.
a scoop worth left," and I'm thinking, if it's the food, like, this, I think, would have already had happened, but
Mhm.
thinking, "Okay, whatever, we'll humor you."
Yeah, and God forbid if you're feeding raw food there or something that's not made by the big 3, they're always gonna blame the food,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, we see a lot more problems with the big 3 than we do with all these other
I'm
companies that are really
sure.
doing it right.
Yeah,
And they're pretty funny because if his answer was, "I'm feeding one of those big 3,"
yeah,
they would've said, "Oh, well, it's not the food."
yeah.
And there's been a lot more food recalled for salmonella contamination in dry kibble than there will ever be in raw food. And people have been made ill from contaminated kibble, which, as you were saying, when you add an infant and you're worried about them crawling around on the floor with raw food, I'd be very worried about my infant crawling around because kibble usually sits in the bowl all day and kids go over and chew on it. I
Mm.
mean, I ate those dog biscuits as a kid. Everybody I talked to has eaten those dog biscuits as a
I
kid.
did too.
See? And
Actually,
so
just I just went straight for the bag. It was
yeah,
really salty, and I liked it.
yeah, and that stuff is pretty contaminated. So,
That's
say that
awesome.
I'm not gonna feed raw or gently cooked because 'cause I'm worried about bacteria in the food. I'd be more worried about bacteria in the kibble, frankly. So, it can be in any of it. I mean, our kids just but, the raw feeding, I don't first of all, FDA has a 0 tolerance for any bacteria in raw pet food. So, if they test and they find anything, it's all getting pulled because they have 0 tolerance for it because they know it's gonna be fed raw. And 90% of the people are handling raw meat from the grocery store in their kitchens, and the cleaning up from that is no different than how you would handle raw food for your pet. So, and you'll find lots of studies online that talk about, oh, the bacteria that we find, in the saliva and in the stool of these dogs. Yeah, and then when we pull those studies apart and really look at them, it's 50% of published studies are false
Mm,
because they're funded by the people who want to get a certain answer. So you have to read them with a
yeah,
pretty
that's
good eye.
yeah, good times. Well, Judy, you've been a wealth of knowledge. I've loved having you.
Thank you.
Where can people buy your books? And you're offering a 50% off for your books, is that
Yep.
right? Okay.
Wake Up 50 for 50% off any of the books that I've written on our website, naturallyhealthypets.com. And you'll find so if you're like, "Oh, geez, what do I do for these fleas and ticks?" I don't care where you buy stuff. If you have a local independent pet store that carries all the good stuff, go there, support them. That's great. If you like ordering stuff online, we got all kinds of stuff. But at least you can look at the brands. You'll see the food brands that we like. You'll see the alternative treatments on our website. So you can go look for those brands wherever you want to, but at least it gives you a starting point
Mhm.
of this is so everything on our website is human grade.
Okay.
I if it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for my pets.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.